If you take a closer look at the products around you, you'll notice that many are made of parts that have been assembled together. One way factories make product parts is by melting materials such as metal, rubber or plastic, then injecting them into moulds. To make a plastic part for a product, the manufacturer first has to commission a mould-making company to design and produce a plastic injection mould. The mould begins as bars of chromium steel, a highly durable metal that can withstand repeated high-pressure injection of plastic. Workers assemble several bars into a block called a mould base. They mount this base on a milling machine, which shaves the bars to the right dimension. This step is critical, enabling them to later machine the base into a mould that's faithful to the technical design, right down to 1/100th of a millimetre. A mould usually consists of two halves, each of which is comprised of several components. The factory drills strategically positioned holes in the bases for the guide pins and bushings that hold the components together when the plastic's injected. A grinder then goes to work, smoothing and levelling the surfaces. This prepares the base for the high-precision machining operations that will transform it into a mould component. A computer-guided tooling machine slowly shapes the base, wearing away the steel, particle by particle, to create the mould's components form. This one, part of a mould for the plastic rim around a snowmobile's front headlight, takes 20 hours to complete. From here, most mould components go onto a second tooling machine, especially if they have fine detailing. The second machine is outfitted with a copper electrode in the shape of the plastic part, in this case, a snowmobile oil gauge. After polishing the electrode to ensure flawless casting, workers use a sophisticated measuring device to verify the dimensions. The electrode is placed face down on a second tooling machine called the EDM. Directly underneath is the mould half that's already been partially formed on the first machine. A strong electric current runs through the electrode and penetrates the mould, forming a cavity in the shape of the electrode. After tooling, coolant lines are drilled so fluid can access and accelerate the hardening of the molten plastic. Some plastic product parts, like the snowmobile oil gauge we saw earlier, have lettering on them. The factory engraves the letters in reverse, inside the mould cavity. After the plastic's injected, the writing comes out, frontward and raised. The surface of the mould cavity is rough after repeated tooling, so it's polished smooth to ensure a proper casting. Here's what the two halves of a finished mould look like. The pins and bushings fit together to close the mould before hot liquid plastic is injected. Once the plastic cools and hardens, it's just a matter of extracting the moulded plastic part. Another moulding method is the two-step process, used here to make buttons for the steering handle of a jet ski. First, a structural base is moulded out of hard white plastic. Then the base is put into a second mould and injected with a rubber-like grey plastic. This softer plastic covers everything but the raised lettering, giving the button a softer feel. Mass production of everything from sports gear to medical equipment relies heavily upon injection moulding to turn out thousands of items, all regularly achieving the highest standard possible.